I never imagined a simple seat at a neighborhood gathering would stir something I hadn't felt in years. My name isn't important, but I'm a woman in my early 40s, married for nearly 15 years. To most, I have a comfortable life. Modest home, quiet street, a husband who provides. But comfort has a cost. Over time, our connection faded. We no longer spoke about anything that mattered. His affection turned into routine gestures. Good morning, good night, the occasional, did you pay the bill? And I, in turn, slowly drifted into silence. I never cheated. Not physically, not emotionally. But I had begun to feel like a ghost. The summer had brought new energy to our neighborhood. College kids were back, lawns were alive, and porches buzzed with activity. That's when I noticed him. My neighbor's son, Daniel. He was home from college, all grown up. The last time I saw him, he was a lanky teenager with braces. Now he stood tall, confident, with a quiet sort of presence. He offered to carry a heavy box from my trunk one afternoon, and I thanked him, thinking nothing of it. But there was something different. He lingered when he spoke, looking straight into my eyes. Not in a disrespectful way, but with a curiosity I hadn't felt in a long time. That evening, as I folded laundry, I caught myself thinking about that glance. Harmless, I told myself. He's just polite. Days passed, and he seemed to appear everywhere. Walking his dog past my garden, offering to help trim a stubborn hedge, returning a package mistakenly delivered to their house. I told myself it was coincidence. Still, I found myself watching for him. I wore lip gloss one afternoon, something I hadn't done in months. Silly, really. The neighborhood potluck was casual. Folding chairs, paper plates, iced tea in plastic cups. I sat alone on a bench, sipping quietly when he walked over. "Anyone sitting here?" he asked. I shook my head, and he sat beside me. We chatted about his classes, his part-time job, his plans. I smiled more in that 10 minutes than I had in weeks. He wasn't flirtatious, not obviously. But something unspoken floated between us. A comfort, a spark, an acknowledgement we both kept at bay. When he laughed at something I said and leaned in slightly, our shoulders brushed. A light touch, accidental maybe, but it sent a ripple through me. I scolded myself internally. He's too young and I'm married. But my heart didn't care about facts. After the event, I walked home with a strange lightness in my chest. Nothing had happened. No rules broken. But that empty space I'd buried deep inside me had stirred. I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, as I lay next to my husband, who was already snoring softly, I stared at the ceiling and thought. Not about guilt, not about right or wrong, but about Daniel's eyes and how alive I had felt for just a moment. After that evening, things shifted in ways I couldn't ignore. Daniel began stopping by more often, always under some innocent pretense. A question about the lawnmower, help with a package, casual conversation at the mailbox. Each visit felt longer than the last, yet never too long to raise suspicion. He never crossed any lines, not with words. But the way he looked at me like he saw something worth noticing, made it impossible to pretend I didn't feel it too. My husband remained oblivious. Our conversations had become transactional, and most nights he was glued to his phone or asleep before I finished washing up. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't dressing differently for Daniel. I wasn't going out of my way to find him. But I noticed when he wasn't around. And when he was, I felt it. A pulse in my chest, a quiet tension that never left the air between us. One afternoon we sat on my porch, drinking lemonade. He asked how I was doing. Really doing. I paused longer than I should have before answering. "Fine," I said, but my voice betrayed me. He didn't press. He just looked at me with a kind of understanding I hadn't seen in years. That unspoken awareness became our language. One I understood too well. Compliment here, a shared glance there. Nothing anyone else would notice, but everything to me. I began thinking about him when I shouldn't have. While cooking, while folding clothes, even during conversations with my husband. It wasn't just physical attraction. It was the way he listened, the way he was present, like he genuinely wanted to hear what I had to say. I hadn't felt wanted in so long that even the smallest attention felt intoxicating. But with it came guilt, gnawing at the edge of my conscience, reminding me that this wasn't a game. We came close once. Too close. He had helped me move some things in the garage. We stood too near each other. His arm brushed against mine, and we both paused. Time stretched, the silence louder than any words. His eyes flicked to my lips, and for a second, I wanted nothing more than to close the gap. But I stepped back, clearing my throat, pretending to check my phone. He didn't push. He never did. And that restraint only made it worse. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. There was color in my cheeks, something alive in my eyes. I hated that he brought it out of me. I hated that I couldn't stop it. But I didn't want it to stop. I kept telling myself that lines hadn't been crossed. But emotionally, I was already halfway gone. I knew where this was heading. We both did. And yet neither of us stopped it. We were playing with something fragile, pretending it wasn't already broken. It happened on a night that didn't feel extraordinary at all. There was no plan, no intent. Just a series of moments that unfolded faster than reason could catch up. He came by unexpectedly, said he couldn't sleep, and asked if I was awake. It was. The air between us was heavier than usual, our words fewer. We weren't pretending anymore. We were just delaying the inevitable. I offered him something to drink. He took it with a quiet thank you and sat close, too close for it to be casual. My mind screamed warnings, but my body stayed still. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was charged. The kind of quiet where you can hear your heart pounding. I looked at him and he looked right back. No hesitation, no question. We both knew what this meant. I leaned in first. Or maybe he did. It doesn't matter. Our lips met in a way that felt both wrong and completely natural. I should have pulled away. I didn't. The kiss deepened, not rushed, but full of all the restraint we had tried to hold on to. His hand moved to my waist, mine to the back of his neck. I felt every breath, every heartbeat, every second of a decision I couldn't undo. There was no small talk, no nervous laughter. Just quiet understanding. It was desperate, tender, and overwhelming. I wasn't thinking about my husband. I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was thinking about how I hadn't been touched like this in years. How someone actually wanted me. Not out of habit or obligation but desire. Genuine burning desire. Afterward, neither of us spoke for a long time. I pulled the blanket around me and he sat still, staring at the floor. Guilt crawled in immediately. Not regret, just guilt. The two are not the same. I knew what I'd done and I knew what it meant. He finally looked at me, and there was no smugness or pride. Just softness. Maybe confusion. He left soon after without saying much. I didn't ask him to stay. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel shocked. I just sat there, replaying everything in my head like trying to convince myself it had actually happened. I wasn't proud. I wasn't satisfied. I was just hollow. Not because it didn't mean anything, but because it did. I walked quietly back to my bedroom, where my husband slept, unaware of the storm that had just passed. I slipped under the sheets, my body still warm from a touch that wasn't his. I stared into the dark, numb and alert at the same time. Something had shifted. Something I couldn't undo. And for the first time, I realized I had crossed a line that would never fade. The next morning, everything felt quieter, like the world had paused to watch me unravel. I moved through the house on autopilot, made coffee, folded laundry, smiled when my husband asked about breakfast. He didn't notice anything. That almost hurt more than if he had. I kept waiting for something to feel normal again, but it didn't. My mind kept circling back to Daniel. The weight of what happened pressed on my chest with every breath. He didn't text. Didn't call. No casual drop-by. I told myself it was better that way. Cleaner. Safer. But the silence didn't feel like space. It felt like abandonment. I kept replaying everything, trying to figure out what he was thinking. Maybe it was just a one-time thing for him. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe he was afraid. I couldn't blame him. I couldn't even look at myself without feeling like a stranger. Days passed. My husband started noticing I was distant, distracted. He asked if something was wrong and I lied. Easily. Too easily. That scared me. How quickly I could hide what I'd done. How effortlessly I could smile and pretend. But the guilt didn't leave. It waited. It lingered in the quiet moments, in the way I flinched when my husband touched me, in the sick feeling in my stomach every time I saw Daniel's house across the street. One afternoon I saw him. He was helping his dad wash the car. He didn't look my way, not even once. That hit harder than it should have. I realized then he was done. Whatever it was for him, it ended that night. And I couldn't hate him for that. He was young. Maybe I was just a mistake he wanted to erase. Or maybe he was doing the right thing, the thing I hadn't had the strength to do. I started writing a letter I never planned to send. I needed to get the truth out of my body. I wrote about how empty I'd felt for years, how his attention reminded me I was still alive. I admitted I crossed a line that changed everything, and I didn't know who I was anymore. Writing it didn't fix anything, but it made the weight a little lighter. Time went on, and the silence between us became permanent. My marriage remained intact on the outside, but something underneath was fractured. Not just because I cheated, but because I tasted something real and then buried it. My husband still doesn't know. I don't think he ever will. Sometimes I wonder if he's keeping secrets too. I don't know if I'd take it back. That night gave me something I'd been missing for so long. But it also took something I'll never get back. My certainty, my peace, my innocence. I live with it quietly like a scar I never show. And sometimes in the quietest hours of night, I still wonder if he ever thinks about me. Or if I was just a story he'll never tell.